Hey guys, Roman and Reaper here. So yep, I'm outside the cinema. It's prime cinema going day, Saturday. I'm about to head in to see The Long Walk. Been really looking forward to this. The trailers for this have looked really good. So fingers crossed it'll be living up to the hype. I'm curious to see how they'll actually make a film of just characters walking into something gripping and cinematic. But the only way to find out is to head in, get some snacks, and get seated for The Long Walk. So I've got my popcorn here and a Fanta, ready for the film adaptation of the first ever novel Stephen King wrote. So, The Long Walk. I am back from seeing it. This is directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed most of the Hunger Games films, and is written by J.T. Mulner, adapting the first book Stephen King ever wrote. He wrote it as a freshman at the University of Maine, ultimately got it published under his pen name, Richard Bachman, the same one he wrote The Running Man under. And of course, that's getting a new adaptation this November, directed by Edgar Wright. Really looking forward to that. Ironically, this film has had a pretty long walk to get to the screen. They've tried multiple times to get this off the ground with directors like George A. Romero and Frank Darabont throwing their hats into the ring, but ultimately nothing materialized until now. But does the film deliver on the weight of its long journey to the big screen? Let's find out. So the film is set in a dystopian America, ravaged by the devastating effects of a great war. In an effort to boost morale, a competition known as the Long Walk is started, in which 50 young men from each state is selected by lottery to walk over 400 miles, maintaining a constant speed of 3 miles an hour, pushing themselves to the limits until there is only one man standing. In the middle of this, we follow Ray Garrity, the home state competitor, who pushes himself along by forming close bonds with his fellow competitors, including Peter McVries. So we've been on a pretty good streak this year when it comes to King adaptations. At the start of the year, Oz Perkins brought us The Monkey, which was pretty fun. Over the summer, we also had The Life of Chuck, which was excellent, one of my favourite films of the year. And so, I'm happy to report that The Long Walk continues this streak. Yeah, this is a fantastic film. If you're somebody who's been waiting to see this book adapted for the screen, yeah, you're likely not going to be disappointed. Something I really appreciated about this film is just how brutal it gets. Like, this is probably one of the more bleak cinema releases of recent memory, and to be honest, it kind of needs to be to get the grim reality of this competition across. I will say, if you're somebody who is squeamish, this can get pretty hard to watch. Deaths come pretty abruptly, injuries are shown in pretty gruesome detail, and there are even like some bodily functions shown as well. Probably the only time I've seen a film use bodily functions not for jokes. Yeah, this thing does not pull its punches, and showing these young men, pushing themselves to the brink to succeed. Yeah, it does not sanitize itself at all. It is bleak, uncompromising stuff. It's an incredibly gripping story. In fairness, with gripping high stakes and plenty of tension. Even simple things like contenders getting down to tie their shoelaces are make for really suspenseful scenes. It is incredibly gripping stuff, but crucially, it isn't just misery porn for the sake of misery porn, because It also has its share of moments of warmth and humanity in there, which allow those darker moments to hit harder, whether it be like little moments of humor from the banter between the contenders, and even the little heartfelt exchanges they share as they form close bonds. What really makes it work is that everybody here is on top form. Obviously, leading things is Cooper Hoffman, the son of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, as Ray. And he is great as this very likable guy who obviously, is driven to carry on by, the bonds he forms with his fellow contenders, but he also has some like darker, tragic secrets within. A touch I really appreciated was them showcasing his relationship with his mother, who's played by Judy Greer. She really sells her anguish at watching her only son volunteer himself to potentially get himself killed. It is great stuff. Another thing I really enjoyed is his relationship with Pete, played by David Johnson, the breakout star of Alien Romulus, and the two of them have great chemistry. But what really makes it work is just how likable Johnson is. He's incredibly charismatic. He has real screen presence. A proper star in the making, and this just solidifies that. He is great. Also in the mix, we have Ben Wang, current Karate Kid, as Olsen, a contender who's full of wisdom. We also have Charlie Plummer as Barkovich, a contender who starts out as a bit of a dickhead, but gradually becomes more sympathetic. We even have Jojo Betzler himself, Roman Griffin Davis, in there. And a fun little meta touch, there's even a contender who's writing a book about the long walk. Everyone here does great work here, and it really allows us to endear ourselves to these characters, which allows those emotional moments to hit hard. And of course, all of that is in service of, what King has described as being an allegory for the Vietnam War, young men, needlessly going and getting themselves killed. And of course, this is embodied by the, incredibly menacing antagonist, the Major, who's played by Mark Hamill, who sheds any hint of Luke Skywalker in an incredibly imposing and threatening turn as he barks out motivational quotes to the contenders with his, quite deep, gravelly voice. He is fantastic here, a proper imposing presence. The film, of course, also has other ideas on its mind, like censorship and, cultural expression. And some of it isn't quite fully explored, but, it does make for a deeper, more emotionally rich journey with, plenty of, interesting thematic subtext. It really is very, very interesting stuff. And to its credit, it is also very well made. It is beautifully shot, whether it be these, wide shots of these, like, vast rural roads, contrasting that with these gritty, rundown cityscapes. And even the nighttime shots are really beautiful here, particularly one late on in the rain. Yeah, I guess the sort of visual beauty contrasts the quite grim nature of the story very nicely, but the two don't feel at odds with each other. Instead, sort of meet at a perfect middle, and carries that through to a very hard hitting, potent climax. Which takes some unexpected turns that also feel like perfectly logical and consistent within the story itself. And these big emotional conclusions hit hard. Yeah, I kind of had to sit through the credits to really let it wash over me and allow that sort of emotion to sink in, because it hits hard. This is a great, great fucking film. Overall, The Long Walk is a brutal, uncompromisingly bleak tale that hits hard emotionally and builds high suspense throughout. Please, please go see this film on the big screen. It is a great experience. Out of 10, The Long Walk gets a 9. So let me know down in the comments. Have you seen The Long Walk? What did you think of it? Have you read the book? Let me know. I'd like to hear that perspective. I'd like to see how it fared as an adaptation. And are you looking forward to seeing future Richard Bachman novels adapted for the screen? Are you looking forward to Edgar Wright's take on Running Man? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.